Hello, everyone. My name is Naresh, and I am a senior principal data architect from Eviden, formerly Atos. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up your first project with Amazon Redshift and dbt Cloud. In this scenario, we are assuming you are a database administrator at a company and you already have AWS account. Now you are being asked to set up the first dbt Cloud project. You need to make sure AWS Redshift is set up correctly for dbt. And then you need to add new developers to Redshift with the right roles and permissions so that developer can transform data using dbt Cloud. You need to do the following 6 activities to configure Amazon Redshift for dbt Cloud. First, you have to set up the Redshift serverless. Then you need to make sure you have the sample data set to create your transformation. Could be your own data set or a sample data set already available. In this demo, we are going to use a sample data set which is already available in AWS and set up a location where the transform data will be stored. And you can start adding new developers to Redshift and assign the proper permission to the developers to make sure they can read the raw data and write the transformed data. Then connect to dbt Cloud and start building your transformations. Let me walk you through the steps to set up a Redshift serverless. We have used this documentation to set up the Redshift serverless. The documentation link is placed on the description box below. To configure Amazon Redshift serverless, I have used customized settings. Next, I will provide details to determine the configuration of your Amazon Redshift serverless. You can provide the name of your choice. In this demo, we are using namespace as dbt training, and then we specify the admin username and password, which is an administrative credentials that provides full access to your Redshift serverless. The default username is admin. In this demo, we are using username as training admin. Provide a password of your choice. Please remember this password as you may need to use it later during this tutorial. In this demo, we are using work group name as training and save the configuration. Once the configuration is saved, serverless work group and namespace will be available. Click on the query editor to connect to the work group with the federated user or admin credentials you used while creating the Redshift serverless. A sample dataset needs to be enabled for a subsequent tutorial. Click on Open Sample Notebooks and create a sample database which can be used as a raw dataset for your tutorial. I'm going to do a quick demonstration to set up database, schema, groups, and user in Redshift Query Editor. By default, Redshift Serverless has dev and sample dev database. Let's create our own database named Analytics to store the transformed data. Let's use the script I already copied over to the sheet and create the Analytics database. Database is created. Let me refresh the panel to see if the database is available. Okay, it is available. Now we are at the point to create users and assign permissions to the user. Let's grant privileges to the group rather than directly to the users. Let's create a couple of groups, transformer and reporter. Transformer group is going to have privilege to read the data from raw database and write the data to analytics database. Reporter group is going to have privilege to read the data from the analytics database. Let's create a dbt cloud service user and assign a group to a service user so that all the privileges we are going to assign to the transformer group can be used by dbt cloud service user. Great. The user is created. Let's assign a grant to create objects in analytics database. Now the permissions are assigned. Let's edit the connection and log in as dbt cloud user to check if the user got required permissions. Now I have logged in as dbt cloud user. Let's execute a query on a raw table to see if the dbt cloud user have read permission on the raw table. Yes, dbt user have permission to read the raw table. Since the sample database is provided by AWS, natively all users have read access to the sample database. If you are going to set up your own database, you have to assign read permission to the transformer group. All right, let's create a schema within the analytics database. Okay, the schema is created. We can store our transformed data to the ticket schema, which is created. Let's execute a create statement to make sure dbt cloud user have access to create a table. All right, dbt user have access to create a table. Let me refresh the left panel to see if the table created is available here. All right, the table is available. Now the user is created and permissions are set to a dbt cloud user to use it in dbt cloud. Let's go ahead and drop the table which is created. dbt cloud service user have access to drop the table in analytics database. That is everything I would like to cover today. Thanks for watching. See you in the next session.